All right, Mike Murray here with Congressman for California 1st District, Doug LaMalfa. Thank you, Congressman, for coming on the show today.
My pleasure. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. So, recently there was a bill, H.R. 6246, and this is the Puerto Rico Emission Act, which seeks to lay out a clear framework and plan in which the island could transition to statehood. So, the summary that you sent me for this is the bill establishes a 9-member bipartisan and bicameral congressional task force on the equality for the United States citizens of Puerto Rico, which shall survey U.S. laws and submit recommendations to Congress as to how laws that do not apply or that apply differently to the territory should be amended or repealed should Puerto Rico become a state. The task force is also required to recommend potential temporary economic incentives to assist Puerto Rico's transition from territory to a state, propose timelines and rules guiding the election of federal offices, and study the effect of Puerto Rico's admission as a state on the existing appointment to the U.S. House of Representatives. The bill expresses the intent that Congress should enact legislation based upon the task force findings in the final report. So before I get to the question that's on Jefferson's mind right now, the state of Jefferson's mind, I want to ask you more about the bill and the process. So from a process standpoint, what needs to be done by the U.S. and what needs to be done by Puerto Rico to get them statehood, and how long do you anticipate this would take?
Well, my colleague from Puerto Rico, she is the resident commissioner is the technical term. She's like the congresswoman from there. And what's interesting about it is that every Puerto Rican is a United States citizen. Everybody that's born on the island, it's the same as if they're born in the 50 states as far as their citizenship. But when you're living on the island as a citizen, you don't have some of the same rights and privileges as citizens of the U.S. But they can freely move back and forth, the same as you move to Nevada from California or something like that. So that's what a lot of people don't quite understand. But so they don't have a vote in a federal election for president. They do in the primaries, but not the general. And their resident commissioner or congresswoman, her name is Jennifer Gonzalez. Great lady. She's a Republican. I've worked with her on the subcommittee. I'm the chairman of the subcommittee that oversees Indian affairs and insular affairs, which is a term for the island territories we have. So I've worked with her on this, and we recently made a trip to Puerto Rico for a few days to look at how things have gone post-hurricane, to how they're rebuilding, how their power system, their electricity grid is coming up to speed, and all the other issues. Because indeed, as a territory of the U.S., we have a role in that, similar as you would a state. So what they're looking for, since they first came into existence post 1898 Spanish-American War and through the Treaty of Paris, soon after it became a territory of the U.S., which again has been a nearly 120-year process now. They've slowly come to the idea over time of asking to become a state. They haven't always thought that, but in recent elections, which is called a plebiscite, where the whole country, citizens vote on an issue instead of just a candidate. In California, for example, it would be either a referendum or initiative, but if we were to have a nationwide vote on an issue, the term would be a plebiscite as well. So they voted the last 2 times in recent years that they would like to move forward with a majority saying that they would like to see statehood.
So
our job, in Congress and with what this bill is seeking to do is to explore that with the task force that you had mentioned there. Again, bicameral and bipartisan, and it'll also include the commissioner or quote unquote member of Congress in there in that process. And so they'll be taking up that process. The bill is just introduced, and I did come on as a co-sponsor because I think it's a good question to ask and a good process to go through to see where we are on that statehood.
Can I ask you what because in 1967 they voted against statehood, essentially.
Mhm.
In the last decade, they've been a lot more open to statehood and voting for it. Is there something that changed their mind, or is it just the overall impact that the United States is having?
I can't speak to what has made them change their mind. Years ago, maybe it was just a real idea of independence that they didn't want to be part of it. But I think over time, maybe them becoming more used to as a society of what American life is like. Because indeed, on our visits, it's very nice down there. It's a beautiful island, and the it's easy to get around and transact business. Your money's good, your credit card's good.
Mm-hmm.
Staying at a hotel is just like one here. I mean, it's you're pretty at home. People are extremely friendly, not because they knew I was a congressman or something, but they're just that way. As it goes. So
Could it be?
I think they've warmed up to it.
Could it be like
Yeah.
a Hawaii type destination? Then is
Not
that?
unlike that, only just a lot more Spanish than Hawaiian, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it was quite nice there. I'd actually recommend it.
So,
So they've warmed up more and more as a people to the idea of statehood. It was about
Mhm.
50% or so in 1997, and a little less than 50% in '93. The numbers hit 61% in 2012, and then 97% in 2017. But the voter turnout was kind of tweaked that year. But it's trending strong that way. And Jennifer Gonzalez is who has a great. And we went around with her during that visit. People loved her, and they were just it was pretty amazing. So we were pretty impressed with that. Now they have things the island needs to do. Their power grid, they're running on 60-year-old stuff. I think primarily diesel engines providing their electricity, but so there's growth opportunity. There's investment opportunity there that would be pretty big for infrastructure to go in. So that all said.
so with
The task force, again, it's a bill, and it still needs to be brought forward by the Rules Committee and sent to a committee. I think it would come to my committee to be heard, to talk about forming up this task force, in which case they would have a period of time to start studying these questions on what it takes to put together statehood, what are the effects of it on how Congress and its distribution would be, and affects, what would be the cost? Is there a big cost or is there a big plus? So these are all questions that the task force does, and we bring that back to Congress and then make further decisions from there.
All right, so I know you talked a little bit about the financial effect. They do need infrastructure help. What would be the total financial effect that it would have on the United States to bring them into statehood?
Again, that's part of what the task force would be helping to illuminate.
Okay.
In that, so Congress could make a informed decision on what the implications are.
Okay,
So,
I've been looking at past articles, and I was just wondering if there was an update with the disaster that did occur there, because a lot of the articles I've seen take place before that. I was wondering if there was
Yeah.
any update on the financial effect they would have.
well,
No.
there's a financial effect either way because with the territory we have an obligation to some extent, as we do with our states, to be helpful on that. So whether it's Puerto Rico or other states, though, I personally get a little tired of people building things in places that are highly hurricane vulnerable, and we have to keep fixing them over and over again. With we have resorts and things along the coast and stuff like that, whether it's Florida or New Jersey or whatever. So there needs to be in any of this stuff an insurance program that takes into account the true risk of flood or of hurricane and things like that. But we are there to help Puerto Rico, and there's been a lot of help put into it down there with rebuilding the power grid and some of the other things to do so. I think so. Statehood would probably give them even more options on what kind of insurance they could obtain there as part of a 51 state way of doing business. Aligning the rules and the laws with that. So.
Do you mind if I ask you? We talked about the financial effect a little bit. The political effect that bringing Puerto Rico into statehood would have.
Well, each state has 2 senators, so there would be 2 more senators created for the new state, and a population of about 3.4 million is what it is right now. Probably a more formal census would come into play. So that would probably end up being about 4 or 5 members of Congress, and that would be fully voting members instead of one that only gets to vote in committees.
Hmm.
Jennifer also gets to vote on the committees that she's part of as bills are moving through the committee, but not on the House floor vote. So that would be the likely effect, is that they would gain 4 or 5 members of the House and 2 senators, and they would be larger as a state than several of the states we have now that have only one House member. We have, I forget the number, 3 or 4 that only have enough population to have 1 member of the House as well as all their 2 senators. So it wouldn't be the smallest state. It'd probably be, maybe, I'll take a guess, maybe 8th or something like that. 8th smallest,
I think it would actually be even bigger than that, because I think that state of Jefferson would be about the 13th smallest, and they're at 1.8 million. So
yeah, I don't have all those stats in front of me, but I know
I'm just going off the top of my head.
Undersized population.
No,
so.
it's
And that's an important part of Jefferson, in my opinion. What they need to do too is that there needs to build enough population into Jefferson so it is not a super undersized state, and it wouldn't be taken seriously in the process or as a state. Because Wyoming, I think, has about 800,000 people or something like that. There's several states that have only 1 member of Congress.
I think Jefferson is bigger than a few of those states combined, to tell the truth.
Depending what number of counties you're looking at. But,
yeah.
So the Jefferson map, I've looked at that map, or ideas for that map. I think you could put at least 35 counties in from California's 58 and accomplish a pretty good number, and still not have any of the counties that are the problem ones that go against what the whole concept of Jefferson is.
So just on the political effects, one more time, are we looking at conservative Senate members, Congress members coming in, or more liberal?
Oh yeah, it's good. That's a good question too, and of course that's a big factor of how Congress looks at things is through that political spectrum, that's the political lens. And to me, right there you have their commissioner, their congresswoman. It was interesting that she's elected for a 4-year term as that, not 2 years like regular House members. So she was elected for the whole island by 3.4 million people as a Republican. So what I would see is that if this was formed, you would probably get about a 50-50 split on the politics. You'd probably end up with maybe 1 senator of each party. It just depends which way it's going. And the House members, probably a similar situation, because it's going to be portioned out on the island as the population center. So, San Juan might have a higher concentration of Democrats. That's where the mayor is from there, she's the one who's making all this noise against the president when they were trying to send aid down there. So,
that's what I wanted to ask you about her a little bit.
It'll be a split. Go ahead.
She was the political puppet of the disaster. She was manufacturing T-shirts while there was a disaster happening somehow. But do you anticipate facing that kind of corruption and those type of people? Because she's facing an FBI corruption probe right now. Do you think we're going to get more cooperation, or do you think we're going to run into more of her going the route of statehood for Puerto Rico?
I think with any place in politics, you're going to find corruption or attempted, going on, and it seems to manifest itself even more intensely in large cities like that. So in an urban area, that they seem to come forth and have more political power brokers that put people like that in place. So I don't think Puerto Rico would be a whole lot different in having to be vigilant against political corruption. People are people in that sense. But she managed to win mayorship, but look at the mayors of all the large cities we have in the U.S.
Yeah.
How different is that?
We have our own problems here with mayors, but
so as far as the island goes, I think most of the island is rural, and if some of the prosperity that comes from the U.S. and what could be invested there, to me, they should build a couple of large natural gas-fired electricity-producing power plants, one on the north side of the island, one on the south, and start setting up the infrastructure. That would make their economic activity better, because their electricity is fairly expensive, and their publicly held power company is not very well run or very efficient. So I think U.S. investment and know-how coming in there could be a big thing. Could be a big plus for some of our people that we get to go in and help do some of that building. And it's also important as an island down there to have stability in that zone. If they decided, for example, to go completely independent, then you would see China, with the aggression that they're going, maybe China would want to come in and cut deals with them, and they need to have another island situation, not unlike taken to the extreme. We're just talking in theoreticals here, but would you end up sometime with another Cuba type situation if they went completely the other way, if they went independent and they were no longer a territory nor a state?
That's something we definitely don't want.
You weigh out in the process. I don't see that happening at all. I don't think there's any push or thought for that, except maybe by the crazy mayor or somebody. But so there's a lot to add up with this territory and the obligation that we do have in the country to its territories.
So it's time for the Jefferson question.
Yeah.
This is the question I've been getting a lot from people lately. Why not us at this time? You're District 1. You know the frustration that people here in Northern California are feeling. California is stripping away our liberty. We have very little representation to protect us. I mean, why not us? Why not us yet?
To me, it's not a not. It's keep moving forward, and the process is pretty clear in the U.S. Constitution under Article 4, Section 3 of what it takes to do that, and that is the admission of new states has to go through the consent of the legislature of the state involved, or states if we decided to take some counties from Oregon or Nevada, let's say. And Mike, a while back I was looking at a map, and it occurred to me Oregon and Washington have very similar problems. This kind of popped in my mind. I've seen proposals, I think, to split Washington in half. What if we just made a super Jefferson that started at the Canadian border, went down the east half of Washington, east half of Oregon, and the east half of California? What would that look like? So that was just something that
I'll tell you, there would be a lot of happy people, because like you said, it's very similar what's going on up there with Seattle and Washington and Portland and Oregon. And there's
they're tired of getting run over by Portland and Salem and Seattle and all that. It's just so it's really, I think if you can smell salt air, that it seems to affect your mind negatively with the.
Well, it's not just the salt air. The same type of movement's going on over in Illinois right now as well, where where you have an entire state controlled by one urban population, essentially. So it's...
Yeah, if you're next to the Great Lakes or the ocean or a large body of water or something,
it's the water then, yeah.
But on the state of Jefferson, look, I've been a long-time supporter of the concept, even before I knew it was called Jefferson. I think back in the 80s, my brother-in-law and I both had T-shirts that showed most of the Northern California counties breaking off on their own, but I hadn't heard in the 80s, I had never heard of the state of Jefferson. We didn't have the internet out there pushing the story. But, the Jefferson concept goes back to at least 1941 and probably longer of doing so. And it probably wasn't as acute of a situation as it is now for rural California versus urban. So I get it. I have the double cross flag hanging in my office in Washington, D.C. So, but it's a process issue. We love the Constitution. We love process and the rules. So if we want to admit a new state, we've got to make the case to the people of this state that with basically the requirement under Article 4, consent of the legislatures of the state concerned, and then it comes to Congress. And then I've told people to ask me. I've been to quite a few Jefferson meetings and said if we can get it through the state, I'm happy to carry the bill in the U.S. House. to do it, because I live this stuff too. I'm a farmer in Northern California, and we're subject to all sorts of ridiculous rules and regulations and taxes and stuff that affects the vehicles they have to use on highway or off highway. Gas tax. We were staunch supporters of putting the gas tax repeal on the ballot. That's now given us a great issue to build an election around this November here in California, and that's given us a little hope in this thing, because Gavin Newsom isn't as well loved as he maybe thinks he is, and
it's a different feeling here in California.
I think we have a bit of a shot here, okay?
Oh yeah,
the governors.
And it's a different feeling going on in California right now than we felt in the past. There's a feeling of hope. And each time one of those gas tax type bills gets passed, we're in better shape than we were.
And all the other outrageous things I can't even enumerate that comes out of this legislature.
We spend so much time on the show talking about it. People are frustrated and people want a change, and hopefully we can get that. So thank you.
Rural folks, or more Republican-leaning or conservative-leaning folks, they're already immediately on board with that, but we're outnumbered. Republicans are now the third sized party, quote unquote, in the state, behind Democrat and nonpartisans. So we're playing from behind a little bit, but if you can win the hearts and minds of people, because they see the gas tax, because they see everything has to be so much more expensive and regulated, but home pricing, people they want to get jobs in the Bay Area, they have to get up at 4 in the morning and ride a bus in the dark or camp in the Bay Area. It's so we have so much we need to fix about the state, and most people don't have the faith you can fix it with the attitudes you have of the urban elite coming out of Silicon Valley and San Francisco, LA, even Sacramento. And I see all the maps. They don't want Sacramento County in it either for the new Jefferson as well.
No.
And that goes to the craziness of this 3-state thing that's going to be on the ballot this November.
Oh.
They drew the Northern California state they drew. It included San Francisco.
Well,
if we get that, we will actually be worse off where we live, where you live, where I live, because now we'll have a concentrated, smaller state with San Francisco dictating to the whole state. Right now, San Francisco is partly diffused by San Diego and LA and other large population centers. LA's got its own problems. It's not quite as crazy as San Francisco is in what comes out of there. So, well,
with that, we make up Jefferson counties make up 14% of the population under that map, and don't make up any of the top 10 most populated counties, and are outnumbered by one single county named Santa Clara County in the Bay Area. Wow. So it's ugly for Northern California if that were to move forward.
Yeah.
So.
That's a good stat, because again, there's a bit of a leveling effect of the whole state. Not quite be as crazy on average as San Francisco area is. And so now we'd have the full brunt of their making laws somewhere that affect our water rights, or anything we do outdoors, forestry, whatever, or getting rid of cars, getting rid of roads. We'd be in the middle of all that.
Yep.
So we got to be very strong on defeating this.
What works for the Bay Area doesn't work for us up here. Well, thank you so much, Congressman LaMalfa, for taking the time out of your busy schedule to talk to us. Really do appreciate it, and do appreciate you talking about the Puerto Rico situation. We hope to talk to you again as this moves forward. Just wanted to say thank you.
Let's do so, because there's a lot that needs to be covered on this still. I think this Puerto Rico discussion is also an opportunity to talk more so about the Jefferson idea as well, because if you're adding stars to the flag, it's just as easy to add two as it is one, right? So,
yep. We can have a parallel movement right here. So, Thank you again, and we're going to have to go to commercial break right now. So thank you, and we'll hope to talk to you soon.